Hello, and welcome to Andrew Broussard Watercolors. Today, we're going to do a fast and loose tonalist watercolor landscape painting on a quarter sheet of Stonehenge Legion Stonehenge. This is just 90-pound paper. It comes in a variety of tones and tints. This one is kind of a little off-white. Unfortunately, when I order them, they aren't really labeled, so I've come up with a plan where I'd order 2 of one, 3 of the next, etc., so I can know and differentiate, but I haven't gotten those in yet. So that being said, I pre-wet my paper with a large Hake brush, and I'm debating if I want to just use the Hake brush in this painting. Here's some raw sienna though, and I'll talk about a few ideas as I go about. So of course this technique that I use is derived from the modern tonalist masters in the oil painting field, where they thin their oil down and use a smooth surface to wipe on and off and go back and forth. With watercolor, I work wet and wet, and I go back and forth, adding and subtracting. And for the most part, my pigments aren't really staining, so I don't have any issues with that. I think I'd start running into issues with the phthalo blue, or I think Viridian staining. I'm not sure, but I like my earth pigments to begin with. So anyway, the solo Hake paintings, I've done 2 or 3 of them the past few days, and it was just kind of a challenge for myself, and just minimizing what I was using, just going even more extreme in the minimalist aspect. There's also been an art movement that I didn't know about that is kind of influencing me recently. Here's some Payne's Gray mixed into that. So I consider myself a tonalist. Painted in kind of those lower keys, more muted feeling, more moody, emotional memory of things, kind of that type of feel. I've talked about it a lot in the past. Then on my Facebook feed, I follow this one page called Monochromy, which is usually historical monochromatic works of art. And they had shared something from a page called Ode to Pictorialism. And that was all photographs, and it was a photography movement that started around the same time as the tonalists, the impressionists, etc., and was heavily influenced by them. It was using the can't think of the word. It was using the tonalist movements, all those, as influence for the photography itself, and it's just absolutely wonderful. I really love it, and I believe their kind of essentially mission statement idea was to use photography as an artistic medium and try to get essentially painterly effects with the photography. Nice and moody, very cool alternative printing methods that they used. I think they used carbon printing and others. Anyway, so pictorialism has been heavily influencing me. So that's what's been going on. I probably have mentioned that I feel like I haven't filmed a full length in a while. I'm mixing a little bit of ultramarine into this, but it's mixed with my earth pigments. I'm going to start getting some ideas for this background here. But with school back in session, with work back in session, been kind of tired to film and narrate at the same time. So it's just been a lot of just music and playing around, painting. Let's see. This paper does buckle more than the 140-pound Stonehenge Aqua. I'm going to mix a little bit of light red in here. Let's see if we can get... We're still pretty muddy. We had went to Lafayette the other day, and we're finally starting to get rain down here again in Louisiana. We had a drought that lasted well over a month, probably almost 2 months. And so we're starting to have storm clouds again in the sky. And I was looking at them the other day, and I was thinking about different ways to incorporate clouds, or different approaches for clouds, involving paper towel, trying to get back to the white of the paper, some different ideas and techniques. Since this paper is a little warm, we're not going to get that pure white lifted back. I have used the more tanner paper, cream, fawn, and craft, and I really enjoy them. But I did find whenever I was using them, I was using white gouache to then kind of backtrack, almost kind of like a charcoal chalk drawing on tones of paper, going in either direction. Okay. This is me just mixing raw umber with the Payne's gray. As you can tell, everything's still really wet and wet. I figured I would go back in here and let another layer take place. Kind of have that far background, this background here. Just really lay in some wet and wet distances. Feed a little bit of burnt umber. Thinking about how I want this foreground to look. Oh, by the way, you guys are always welcome to follow along, and you're always welcome to sign your own name to anything that you do when you follow along, and you have my express permission to sell anything that you do when you follow along. I want you guys to be successful, to have fun, and have money for art supplies. Art supplies are expensive, So just throwing that out there. And you're more than welcome to tag me in any of the social medias down below, because I would love to see your results. That being said, I do have the Patreon linked down below with some exclusive content. So thank you everybody that supports the channel through Patreon. I take that money and I put it back into art supplies. And it allows more experimentation and just try to vary the content on the channel. So thank you all so much for your support through that. And I do have Etsy linked down below. And lately people have been ordering some stuff, so if you ever want a piece of my work, I have the Etsy for you all to check out. But liking and subscribing and probably liking the Etsy page would help out tremendously. So thank you all. So I'm looking at just coming forward in the picture plane and just creating another layer of the wet and wet. I'm trying to build up my tonal values as I'm moving forward in the picture plane. It is all going to dry softer than it is right now, but with yesterday's experiment I felt like I had the symbol and shapes of trees that were taking place in this approach, and it was looking pretty cool. Bring this one up higher. This is the Payne's Gray. Payne's Gray definitely dries lighter and softer than this. And that's something to explore and watch out for. The wet stage, when you dry it, it just has a huge tonal shift. But it really does give a nice softness to work on top of. Let's see, I want to layer right here. Some are getting lost in the clouds, which is fine. So the quarter sheet is 11 by 15, and the pre-cut mats are about 10 and 5/8 by 13 and 5/8, I believe. So I painted the edges, but if this was matted, it would come into about here, and we'd lose a little bit of the bottom as well. But for me, painting those essentially off to the side pieces helped me create, for me, a more realistic scene in my mind. Hey, Hammy. Some light red oxide in there. Let's see how we're looking. Looks splotchy through the camera, which is fine. We'll see how it looks whenever we do a dry off. And we could lift back for some textures. I had bought a pack of sponges, I think it's the natural sea sponges that they sell in the art store, but I haven't really tried them for texture making, and I know that they're really common. I just wondering about the maintenance for them. Just getting texture. I think I want to introduce phthalo blue here. We're closer to the foreground. I want a dark, and it does push a little green when mixed with the earth pigments. Let's see. So I just use the hake on its side. You can use your fingers. I don't really do it anymore, but you can use your fingers to bring it to a sharper point to put in your tree trunks. If you have an old worn out one like me, you can grab those little edges to put thin lines in. You can see that right there. Hopefully that showed up. Yeah. And since we're so wet and wet still, it's just exploratory. I used the back of the hake brush the other day in an extreme instance of just using the hake brush. I was using that for scraping. It's for little lined effects as well. I guess we can do that in this one. See how I'm just going to gently move it. I really don't want to damage the paper. There's nothing wrong with damaging the paper. It's just that I know that this is going to dry lighter than it is, and sometimes those lines will dry darker, and you just get more of a contrast that doesn't, for me, doesn't look natural. It might be something that you like, so that's something for you all to try with. I usually will darken almost all the way around to kind of create a framing device. But I'm thinking in this case I might leave this triangular shape with that light in there. It's just an artistic approach. Let's see, let's bring more trees up. I'm starting them lower so that they're coming closer to us in the picture plane. This is with the phthalo blue mixed in. You can see how some of the areas are still wet and it's just blooming, which is fine. It's giving the overall feel of it. Let's go on the darker side of things, or more natural burnt umber in there, help ground that in place. Use just the little flyaway brush parts. Let's go up here as well. Put a little more darker values. I love all this softness over here. If I put a tree branch here, I'm going to be dividing a tree trunk right there. I'm going to be dividing it quite a bit, but I do like interior. Yeah, let's go for it. I do like the kind of interior swamp type scenes. Give it a secondary guy coming off of it. You can still see the extreme wet and wet taking place. How many minutes are we in? We're in 21 minutes. So that can give you an idea of how long my paper stays wet for. I think environmental factors, the atmosphere, what's going on humidity wise, plays a part in the drying process during the painting process. Also, I had coated this paper last night with water. I was getting ready to paint, but we had a family emergency, so had to go take care of something. But everything's fine. But anyway, so I re-coated it this morning, and I wonder if that played any part too. But I did notice little areas of whatever sizing is on top of the paper. They kind of dried in little blooms in some spots. I think that's what it was. And it might be the calcium, is it carbonate that they use as a buffer? Or is that to make it acid free, the paper? I'm not sure. Anyway, I saw a little bit of that, what looked like a starchiness. I'm seriously debating leaving this left side alone, as I just kind of darken up this a little bit more just to push it a little forward. Starting this guy lower. Payne's gray with some of that phthalo blue in it. A little bit in here just to help with the sense of depth. Let's use the paper towel to lift a little bit. A little bit here. Trying to twist my paper in my hand, the paper towel, so that I'm not repeating a pattern. Throw some lamp black up underneath here. I think, okay, we're 25 minutes in. We can continue playing with this, and you can continue painting as it just dries. Just kind of keep working it, and just let it go through that whole drying process. But I'm thinking that we'll stop. Should we stop and dry off? Or do I work off camera? Alright, I'm going to pause it. Let's dry it off. Let's see how things soften in this. I really like the way it is now, but unfortunately it is going to lighten up. Okay, so as you can see, it lightened up, and it creates a really soft atmospheric effect. Now, like I had mentioned, we can have continued painting in the wet and wet stage, and as things dried, it would have less of a tonal shift, just because we're slowly working with less and less water as that happens. We could now go over it with a with the Hake brush again, and start building up some foreground elements and really have a sense of depth taking place. Or we can leave it like this. So there's just a lot of different approaches and things that you can work with. I think that I'm going to leave this the way it is. I'm going to photograph it and upload the video. I might do a second layer on top, but that'll be for either another video or off camera. So I hope you enjoyed. Once again, please like, subscribe, follow, and you'll have a great day. Thank you for watching.